Episode 26 of Wasteland Weaponistics. Today's video is all about the unnamed 10mm pistol. This pistol was first seen in Fallout 4 and has reappeared in Fallout 76 and the Fallout board game. I don't really know the canon status of the board game, however I felt like mentioning it, as I've never really talked about the board game in any previous video. So yeah, the unnamed 10mm pistol. The third mainline 10mm pistol of the Fallout series, first appearing in Fallout 4. There's no actual written lore about this one compared to the previous 10mm pistols. We know basically nothing other than it is a 10mm pistol within the Fallout universe. So most of this episode is going to be speculation and guesswork. The most defining feature of this pistol, at least to me, compared to other 10mm pistols, is the sheer size of the gun. This 10mm pistol is gigantic. Even compared to the oversized 10mm pistols of previous Fallouts, it makes this Smith & Wesson Model 29 44 Magnum look small. Now, the pistol can be heavily modified with different barrel lengths, muzzle brakes, different sights, and even be made to go full auto, something the N99 and the Colt 6520 could not do. Now, with the right attachments, you can actually make this pistol smaller, but when fully kitted out, this pistol is approaching the size of a rifle. In the real world, we have these chassis kits that allow you to convert most modern pistols into a platform more or less meant to mimic guns like an MP7 or the much older Uzi, which, if you think about it, are already very large pistols that are meant to go full auto. However, it is hard to get a full auto in the United States, so instead we get these pistol caliber carbines. I think that's what this pistol is supposed to be, something that's more akin to a gun like the Russian PP-2000 or the Flux Defense MP-17, or perhaps even just an MP-7, if you think about it. In Fallout 4, this is actually the only full auto 10mm, as there is no 10mm SMG in the game. So this pistol essentially takes up both slots. See, now its size doesn't seem as ridiculous if you think of it more as an SMG than a pistol. In real life, we have giant pistols as well, like the recently revealed Kel-Tec P50, which is a giant pistol that takes the 50-round FNP90 magazines. Another thought I had about this is, what if the pistol is so huge because it's actually meant to be used with power armor? Weapons designed for power armor obviously have to be a lot bigger than standard infantry weapons, because you're basically designing a weapon for Andre the Giant. Now, why a walking armored unit that can carry an M2 Browning or a minigun into battle would need a 10mm, I don't know. It might be better for police and riot units that use power armor to have this 10mm pistol rather than a heavy weapon, as police tend to get a lot more use out of smaller caliber weapons than military infantry do. And we know that police and SWAT had access to some power armor pre-war. Now, usually I try to speculate what real-world weapon Bethesda based their Fallout version on. Except for this one, personally, I don't think Bethesda really based it on any real-life design. And the artist just kind of drew a retro sci-fi looking pistol. I mean, it has elements of a lot of different pistols, like the Desert Eagle, the Maxim 9, and this weird German pistol I found called the Noblita. But I think it's more of a coincidence more than anything that it shares features with these. Much like how in the game Singularity, the AR-9 assault rifle looks very close to two real-world guns, the AK Alpha and the Creative Arms ARC. Yet Singularity was in development well before either of these guns were ever shown. Now, the primary pre-war user of this 10mm seems to have been the US government, but not necessarily the military. Chris Taylor once said this about the use of 10mm in the Fallout universe. It was a standard ammo for the BATF, the military was more into energy weapons. Now, throughout the entire Fallout series, this fact has not remained constant, with both Obsidian and Bethesda adding 10mm firearms to pre-war military's equipment. In Fallout 4, we find a 10mm pistol in the Defense Intelligence Agency cache at Hub 360. VaultTec also used this 10mm in some of their vaults. We find one at the front desk of Vault 11, and the now ghoulified overseer of the incomplete Vault 88 has one on her. We also know these pistols were for sale to civilians, as one can be found in one of the houses at Sanctuary Hills, unless this was put here post-war, which could also be. However, we also find one in the gun shop at Monsignor Plaza. I'm probably saying that wrong. In Fallout 76, one can be found at Camp McClintock, which is a US Army base. So that does confirm at least some adoption of this platform by the military. For the post-war uses of this pistol in the Boston Wasteland, the faction that makes the most use of it seems to be the military LARPing mercenaries known as the Gunners. Several Wasteland NPCs throughout the area, like everyone's favorite, or least favorite reporter, Piper, has one. Weirdly, even though the 10mm pistol is relatively common in Boston, the raiders of the area make little to no use of the weapon. In Fallout 4, there are two unique versions of the 10mm pistol. The first one is the Wastelander's Friend. This pistol is simply bought from Deb at Bunker Hill. Wastelander's Friend features the crippling effect, making it better at breaking limbs, which can be pretty effective on a rapid-fire weapon like the 10mm pistol. The other unique in Fallout 4 is from the Creation Club. Now, I've went over the Creation Club multiple times on if it's canon or not canon, and Emil Pagliarulo has said it's not canon, but it's also not fully canon. It's what he called parallel to canon. Which I didn't fully understand what that meant at first, but I kind of interpret it as it's canon, however, we're going to never mention it again, and anything in the future will retcon it, or we'll just ignore it, basically. In the Creation Club mini DLC, Neon Flats, the content that is added with this DLC adds a Blade Runner style Cyberpunk Apartment. This apartment was used by a member of the Institute known as the Architect, who has been creating an advanced AI called Snow. You find in this apartment a special version of the 10mm pistol known as the Gen 4 10mm, which is a highly customized version of the 10mm pistol. It features the Troubleshooter's effect, which deals 50% extra damage to robots. By the name Gen 4 10mm pistol, either this was an improvement made by the Institute and they called it the Gen 4, or Gen 4 is the actual name of this pistol. We know that previously unnamed weapons were given names by Creation Club authors, like how Skibida applied the M199 designation to the Fallout 4 assault rifle. Also something to mention, in this Cyberpunk Apartment exists a terminal that directly mentions the Troubleshooter's effect on the pistol. So does that mean in the Fallout universe the magical legendary effects are fully recognized as canon? I mean, we know magic is nothing new to Fallout, as we've seen ghosts, magical reality-altering books, and plenty of other magical things, but it's just kind of weird that a terminal directly mentions a legendary effect. So yeah, now on to the Appalachian Wasteland. The most heavy user of the 10mm pistol post-war was the Responders, especially the Fire Breathers, which was their combat-focused subdivision led by former Brotherhood of Steel member Hank Madigan. During the main quest for the Fire Breathers, you received the Anti-Scorch Training Pistol, a special version of the 10mm modified to deal extra damage to victims of the Scorch Plague. The plan to make 10mm pistols can also be acquired from Responder-aligned Protectron vendors. It also drops from Responders events in the Forest, Toxic Valley, and the Ash Heap. 10mm pistols can sometimes drop from the Scorched Humans on the map as well. We now move on to the Fallout board game. The reason I bring up the board game is because of the expansion that came out later on called New California. New California features a couple playable scenarios that take place on the west coast of the United States. Now, I don't know if the board game is considered canon, or if any of the characters within it are considered canon. But one of the item cards that comes with the New California expansion is the Fallout 4/76 10mm pistol. In fact, the expansion comes with multiple Fallout 4 style weapons. So the board game expansion kind of retcons these weapons into Fallout 1, 2, and New Vegas. Now, unfortunately, the board game adds no lore. It just kind of has a card of the 10mm pistol. But I thought it was interesting that it came with a expansion centered around New California. So that's about it for the unnamed 10mm pistol. It's a giant modular handgun that we might never know its official designation. Maybe one day, one of the board game makers, or Bethesda, if they plan to add more Creation Club content, will reveal the weapon's actual name, but until then, it's just 10mm pistol. See everybody later. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that. Also, there's my main channel, Trooper Fofo, where I play through all types of games like Fallout. Right now I'm doing a Let's Play of a very old survival horror game called Extermination. It was made by Sony in 2001 for the PS2. Really interesting game. You should check it out. Alright, bye.